Rome, Open City, one of the most important films in Italian cinema history. And this scene is one of the most influential ever put to film. Here, Pina, played by Anna Magnani, is killed by Nazi invaders as she attempts to save her fiancé, Francesco, a final act by a character vehemently opposed to Nazi oppression. But this scene has even more relevant themes to unpack, that being the role of the woman in Italian cinema. Writing in the film journal Clio, filmmaker and actor Sarah Gadon wrote, "While Pina temporarily defies the Nazis by chasing after Francesco, the tragedy of her murder is that she dies for romance, not the political injustice that enraged her." Gadon's issue is autonomy. Pina lacks true autonomy as she is forced to comply to the vision of a male director. While her actions earlier in the film show ideological grit and a fight for freedom, this is ultimately contradicted by her death. Gadon writes, "Pina symbolizes the tension between burgeoning female independence and traditional female roles." But a major cultural shift was coming. In the desperate landscape of post-war Italy, there grew a feminist movement that would change not only Italian cinema, but the country itself. A post-war Italy gave way to the rise of cinema as a form of expression, more specifically, neo-realist cinema. Paralleling the rise of a true Italian film style and form came a wave of radically progressive feminism, led by activists like Carla Lonzi, who founded the Rivolta Femminile, or Women's Revolt. Lonzi co-founded this movement with Carla Arcardi and Alveria Banotti, who were a painter and journalist respectively, while Lonzi herself was an art critic. These women and the beginnings of the Italian feminist movement were intertwined with art from the very start. Who were the filmmakers that came out of this progressive shift of Italian culture? One of the most well-known and influential is Lina Wertmüller. Wertmüller grew up during this radical post-war period. She went on to be mentored by Federico Fellini. In 1975, Wertmüller was the first woman to be nominated for an Academy Award for Best Director for her film Seven Beauties. Wertmüller's films were incredibly polarizing and often commented on Italian society. Her 1972 film, The Seduction of Mimi, was described by the New York Times' William Grimes as "Antiquated codes of honor undo the title character, a dim-witted Sicilian laborer played by Giancarlo Gianni, whose neglected wife stages a sexual revolt." Wertmüller never shied away from making the audience uncomfortable and attacked charged topics in much of her genre-bending work. Another important filmmaker who grew up in what was deemed by Molly Tambor as the lost wave of Italian feminism is Liliana Cavani. Cavani attended the Experimental Cinematography Center in Rome, and then began working with the Radio Televisione Italiana, making documentaries on the beginnings of Nazi Germany. Cavani released her first film in 1966, called Francesco di Assisi. The film was a radical take on the life of Saint Francis of Assisi. The film reflected the current state of political turmoil and the decline of religion in Italian society. The film's themes heavily intersected with the student movement of 1968. Italian filmmaker and writer Italo Moscati described the film. "It broke the boundaries of television conformism by presenting both the concern and the hope of the religious event." Moscati went on to say, "It induced a verification of the simplistic hagiographic tradition and stimulated individual meditations on the significance of the evangelical message. Cavani's most famous work, which is also considered her most polarizing, is her 1974 film The Night Porter. The film explores an at least bizarre and at many points sadomasochistic relationship between a Nazi officer and a prisoner at a concentration camp. The film's use of Holocaust imagery was seen by some as deplorable. In an essay by Annette Insdorf, she described The Night Porter as a provocative and problematic film. Nonetheless, the film is regarded as a cult classic. Regardless of pushback and criticism, filmmakers like Lena Wertmuller and Lilian Cavani never stopped making films that not only called into question the social and political norms of Italian culture, but also were unflinchingly their own artistic style and voice. Wertmuller and Cavani come from a class of incredibly important women filmmakers that redefined the role of women in Italian film, both in front of and behind the camera. The current state of Italian cinema is in good hands. Filmmakers like Chiara Bellossi and Alicia Rohrwacher are producing incredibly strong work. Rohrwacher won the Grand Prix at the 2014 Cannes Film Festival for the film The Wonders, which employs the classic Italian neorealist style to tell the story of a teenage girl's first experiences of the beauties and hardships of womanhood. Independent filmmakers like Daphne Di Cinto are making a statement in an industry that to this very day is very lacking in representation.
Well, I guess growing up as somebody who has a passion for storytelling, literature, history, art, I was used not to see myself represented in the history of my own country. And I got told that that was just the way it was.
But in 2019 and 2020, more than 13% of Italian films were directed by women. The future looks promising.